In this video, we will be answering these questions. How to do a back rank mate. What is a back rank mate in chess? And how to avoid a back rank mate in chess. Please make sure you watch the previous videos on chess before this one, because you'll learn many more concepts in chess which will turn you from zero to hero. I will leave the link of those chess videos in the description below. Now onto the chess video. Today we are going to be learning an important concept called back rank checkmates. Now before we learn what the checkmate is, we first need to learn what the back rank is. It's pretty simple. The back rank is this row. It's the 8th row. So there are numbers and there are letters. Letters are the columns. So they're known as files. And we have the rows, which are the ranks essentially. So the back ranks are the 8th and the 1st. Now, this checkmate happens when, after you've castled, if you haven't learned how to castle, go watch that video. I'll put a link to it in the description. So, when both kings have castled, it is at the end of the game, and a rook comes over to the opponent's rank. Let's see how it happens. So it's white's turn, and white is going to play a silent killer move. Rook to f1 to e1. As it turns out, rooks don't like being under pawns because the pawns block their vision of sight. As you can see here, the rook cannot go straight up, but if these pawns didn't exist, it would be laser beaming down this file. So the rook moves to e1 to go for the open file. An open file is basically where there are no pawns and the rook is on that file. I'll talk about that in later videos. Now, this rook is guarding, the black rook is guarding the 8th rank, but let's say that the rook decides to go for a hunt and takes the pawn on b4. This rook has just left the 8th rank, and white is going to take advantage of that. White is going to move the rook all the way up to the square e8, and it is checkmate. Well, the king can't do c. It's clearly check. The king can't do c because it can't capture. It's one square too close or too far away. It can't protect because this is a diagonal and rooks can't go diagonally. And the king can't run away because the pawns actually block the king. If any one of these pawns was on the 6th or the 5th rank, the king would be able to run away. But that isn't happening here. So it is checkmate. In this second position, we are going to see the power. We're going to see how two rooks can very, very easily overpower white. It's white's turn. Now, white wants to go for the same classical back rank mate, the same way how white did it in the previous example. Now, white can move either one of these rooks so that they are lined up. That is called a battery. Again, it will be explained in later videos. But what it essentially is is that one rook is attacking while the other one is defending the rook. You can have a battery with bishops, knights, rooks, queens, and so on. So we can move either one of these rooks. Let's say we move this rook to d1. Now, it doesn't really matter where the king or the rook goes. Now, if the rook goes to the square a8 to still keep guard of the 8th rank, it's still going to be mate. Because once we check, I know that black can take, but remember we have the support of the rook. Now you might be saying, well, black can hit the white rook and it'll be checkmate. No, black can't because it's white's turn. And once we do take, it will be mate again. The king gets blocked in by his own pawns. And he can't run away or he can't block. Now in the 3rd position, we are going to see how white can checkmate by taking advantage of this rook. Now this rook has 2 jobs. It is defending this knight and it is also defending checkmate. What we want to do as white is make black do the lesser job. The lesser job is defending the knight and defending checkmate is a bigger job. So what we want to do is we want to take this knight on b5 with our rook. And no matter what black does, it will be mate. Now, let's say black takes, because you just lost the knight and white is winning because he has the extra rook. He's going to team up on the e file, ult on the b file, and laser beam on the 8th rank. So if black takes, we have just diverted the attention of the rook, and now our rook is going to swoop down or up the board, and it's going to be a same classic mate. Let's go back. Now, some defense tips is that in the end game, or once you have castled, both sides have castled, you should push one of your pawns. It doesn't really matter which pawn, or it sort of does, but let's say I push this pawn, or let's say white pushes this pawn, black pushes this pawn, and white takes, because now if black takes and white tries to checkmate, the black has an escape square, and now there's no checkmate threat. Now, you also don't want to weaken your king completely, because if I move the rook to any old square, now you don't want to fully weaken your king, because if you move this center pawn or the g pawn up a square, can you see the problem? All of black's pawns are on light squares, meaning the dark squares are super duper weak, because pawns can only defend diagonally. No pawn is defending the dark squares. So if I put a bishop on the square c1, it can move all the way to h6 and cut off black's defense square, black's escape square. So now that you've learned what the back rank checkmate is and how to prevent it, all you have to do is practice, practice, practice to master it. Write down your top learning in the comment box below. I'll see you in the next lesson. Bye!